Today's the 15th day of Advent, and our story is Solomon. Solomon, who's one of David's sons and becomes king after David and has a sort of up and down to his reign, just like David did before him. He builds the temple, which is the permanent home of the Ark of the Covenant and said to be where God lives, but he also has some idolatrous streaks and some other turnings from God that get him into conflict with God. But he's probably best known and remembered for his wisdom. Solomon is said to have been the wisest of the kings, and some of that stems from God asks him if there's anything God could give him, what would it be? If God granted him a wish almost, what would he wish for? And Solomon says that he would pick wisdom. And because it's such a selfless and not a self-serving wish, like power, wealth, or the death of his enemies, God grants the wish and makes Solomon wise beyond measure. But what I think is interesting here is asking for wisdom is a pretty wise thing to do, right? It takes wisdom to recognize the need for wisdom. And so what I think is happening some is that Solomon is practicing wisdom. He's exercising his wisdom. And by doing that and pairing it with his relationship with God, he's able to grow his wisdom and then use it not just to be a blessing to himself, but to be a blessing to others around him, to use it to rule in a fair and just way. I wonder, as we approach Christmas, what is it that we could actually use in our lives? What gifts could we really use? Not just things wrapped in shiny paper, but real gifts that could bring real wholeness to our lives. Or maybe it's better to think about New Year's Eve, right? Where we often make resolutions, things that we want to be different next year, what we're going to change in 2020. And often we think about things like, I'm going to go to the gym more, or I'm going to eat fast food less. And certainly these are things that can make us healthier. But are there also things that we could do that would make us wholer? Things like wisdom, or peace, or restored relationships, or true worship. And I think we can have a little takeaway from Solomon here, where it's not just about sitting around and waiting for God to drop those things into our lap. It's on us to practice, to exercise these things. And in doing that practice and pairing it with our relationship with God, we see how God deepens these things in our life, that they might be a blessing to us and to those around us. So if it's peace that we yearn for, then we need to practice peace and rest and stillness. If it's restored relationships that we yearn for, then we need to take the initiative and make that first move of forgiveness and reconciliation. If it's true worship that we yearn for, then we need to find time to bring it into our lives, not just once a week on a Sunday morning, but all the time, every day, and in all places, that it might be a part of our lives all the time. And when we do these things, when we take these steps, when we make these practices, and we stay oriented in our relationship with God, we see how God blesses us in them, how God multiplies these things, that we might experience them all the more deeply and share them with a world that desperately yearns for them as well. Remember that you are loved, and God's peace be with you.